Welcome to Hello Plant City. I'm Arlie Smoot.
And I'm Adrian Smood.
Our aim is to create a stronger plant city by learning more about our neighbors in town. We'll talk with people, we'll hear stories, and we'll share ideas from all corners of the community. Here we are with Mr. David Letterfly, who is a longtime Plant City resident, I believe 22 years. I describe him as a modern Renaissance man of creative activities. He's been creating art for over 40 years, a skilled painter, designs large wall graphics, theater sets, circus signs, murals for amusement parks. He's been pinstriping everything from guitars to motorcycles to cars to semis to RVs to planes. I believe over 2,000 RVs. Along with that, he's skilled in antique restoration. And if there's not a brush or tool in his hand, there's a pen where Dave writes about his decades of travels around the US.
You can tell us about your craziest story while you were in the circus.
I'd be happy to. I want to give you a little bit of background. I grew up in the Midwest in Springfield, Ohio on a university campus. And so I came from a contemporary family, and I ended up developing a desire to run away and join the circus when I was a teenager. And the very first thing I did was I played the drums in the circus band. Now, the very first year I was away, 17 years old, on the circus, and we did one-day stands. The big top was set up every day. We gave 2 shows and moved to the next town and everything. I was playing the drums. Well, they had an episode with one of the trucks. One of the trucks en route to the next town went off the road and went onto its side and got wrecked. Well, they had some important things that were mounted in that truck they wanted to retrieve. So they righted the truck back, got it to the lot. They needed to recruit someone to drive this truck with the windshield busted out of it and the mirrors smashed to the side and all this, and smoke coming out of the engine and stuff. And here I am, a 17-year-old, pretty shy, just came from the college town, and I was pretty much willing to do anything. And I think that part of their thought process was, since he's the drummer, he's expendable. So we'll get him to drive it. So they put me in this thing, and I had just learned how to drive just months before. So I get in the thing and had a 4-speed, and they put goggles on me because there was no windshield. And they said, good luck to you and all that stuff, and take it easy, go slow. So I started driving this thing to the next town, and I needed to use the brakes, and I put my foot on the brake pedal, and it went all the way to the floor. I had no brakes whatsoever. So that just made me drive even more cautiously, and I figured I'd be okay if I didn't have to do any stopping because I could gear down. And I'm going through this downtown area, and the light turns red, and it's like, oh, I geared all the way down to nothing, and then I had to turn the key off and let the engine pull me up to a stop. And when I got to the next town, since I was so late because I went so slow, the big top was up in the air. They were all halfway set up and everything, and I went to the cookhouse to get my breakfast, and I had taken my goggles off, and I show up at the cookhouse, and they were all laughing at me because apparently I looked like a raccoon from all the soot that had gone past my face during that drive.
That was your initiation.
That was, yeah,
Like
show business, yeah.
So Arlie mentioned in the intro that you've restored antiques and have different art projects. What's the most fascinating one you've done, or maybe something that's here in Plant City that is your favorite?
Prototype for a coin-operated roulette. It was like somebody had this idea, they built this prototype, and I guess it's like the only one in existence. And he had me develop the exterior and the decoration on this piece of coin-operated gambling.
So it's like a slot machine, but instead of the slot, it's
there's a set wheel on it. Yeah.
We need to bring that to the Hard Rock Casino and see if we can put one in.
Yeah, so that's in a private collection along with, I also restored 8 carousel animals for that same customer.
Did that go on an actual carousel, or are they? You have one in your yard, right?
they were in his collection. They were antiques that had come from a carousel, and then they were for his personal collection in his home.
City now, you came to Plant City 22 years ago for motorhomes, right?
Right. I became a snowbird 40 some years ago. I was a sign painter in Michigan, and I enjoyed the winters in Florida. I had a client here that would use me for the wintertime here in Florida. And then I thought I was going to settle in Sarasota whenever it became time to settle down. But when Lazy Days, the big RV place, made it attractive for me to become their resident artist 20 some years ago, I didn't want a long commute. So I looked around and I fell in love with Plant City, especially this piece of property that I have up north of town out in the country.
What was it about Plant City? I mean, Sefner would have been closer.
I just love the quaint community and the access to all that we have close by.
And you call your property the Art Park?
Art Park, yeah, definitely. Art Park I coined Art Park when I was the artist at Lazy Days. They put me on the prettiest place on their whole property. And that was where my art studio was.
You've reinvented yourself multiple times throughout your life. Given the state of the world and uncertainty a lot of people are feeling now, some people might be feeling the need to reinvent themselves. Do you have any advice for folks that are thinking about that?
Well, when it comes time, when situations change just as they are now here in the world, I guess you'd say, typically what I do is I kick and scream for a while because I don't want to have to change. I like the things just the way they were. But then when I end up realizing that there's a evolution is taking place and there's a higher purpose that we are going to move into, because you got to realize at one time, the biggest problem we had on this planet was there was horse manure all over the streets. And even though that wouldn't be all bad today, without evolving, we wouldn't have come to this place where we are now. And so when I get done kicking and screaming and complaining about having to change again, I end up entering into I guess it takes a process of willingness and perseverance and help from other people, especially now when it's time to learn how to use the computer to network with the rest of the world.
I've heard you mention that before, asking for help. I think that's something that most people, I'm guilty of it as well, that don't do enough of. And I believe that might be one reason you've been successful, is you're willing just to ask for help when it's something. Once you're done kicking and screaming, you ask for help, and then you're launched into the next step.
It's really interesting that as a child, I made the decision that I was going to be better off if I figured out how to do everything myself. But then as my pattern became apparent, the truth was I was constantly seeking out people that knew something about what it was that I wanted to find out about. That's how I found out so much about all of the facets of training, the classic horsemanship, especially the art forms used with the circus. Was you had to find that out from somebody. And I had access to a tremendous resource because I had learned how to travel, and travel was part of my pattern of behavior. You know, south in the winter, north in the summer. I was able to take advantage of the ability to go to where a knowledgeable mentor was to pursue the information that I wanted to accumulate. And so, yeah, I end up having a career that also includes an endless stream of pursuing relationships with people that have something that I like to learn about.
Do you see any path for the circus to reinvent itself?
Well, what you stop and realize that the circus at one time was the social media. That was the place where people were exposed to new things for the first time. A lot of times back 100 years ago, the first place that anybody saw a light bulb or a refrigerator or a flashlight was when they went to the circus, because there weren't any in the communities that they lived in. And the circus came to town, and that's what they were all about, was providing the audience with access to everything amazing that there is in the world. Not only wild animals from faraway countries, but the latest inventions. So when you stop and think about it, the circus actually provided a large part of what took place at that time. Now that social media and the news and everything that takes place on the internet, it's softened the impact that the circus once had.
Arlie, do you want to get into our final little questions here?
I'll start a sentence and we'd like to hear you answer it. The first one: something I think is true that most people think is false is?
I think that Chicken Little was right.
A book, movie, podcast that has inspired me is?
Is Buckaroo Banzai.
Was that a book?
It's a movie.
Movie.
It's a wonderful movie, yeah.
Have to check it out.
Got something to do this weekend.
Make sure you watch it and then let me know what they're going to do with that watermelon.
Done.
All right. Hopefully it's on Netflix.
Yeah.
When I was 20, I wish I knew.
I wish, I have a regret. My mother was an opera singer, a voice teacher, piano teacher, all this kind of stuff. When I was a little kid, she offered to teach me how to sing. I didn't think it was masculine. So I did not take her up on that, and I've regretted that ever since. I wish that I would have learned how to sing.
The thing I do daily that brings me joy.
Oh, there's lots of things I do daily that bring me joy. I have a creative imagination, and I've learned that there are things that I have to do to allow the environment for my imagination to thrive. And part of what I do on part of my routine, my morning routine, is to discard things that are taking place in my brain so I can let the mental activity quiet down, and then I have a place for my imagination to begin to grow the little ideas that turn into bigger and bigger ideas.
That's what I asked. Is it meditation, writing? What do you do to discard everything?
Yeah, combination. Yeah, writing is cathartic, and meditation is a discipline that requires that same sort of a selective process.
The most fascinating person in Plant City that many people don't know about is?
There's an older gentleman that I met who lives here in Plant City who was a Texas Ranger. He was an absolutely fascinating guy, and he's one of those guys that I would see frequently when I would attend something going on downtown Plant City. He was sort of always in the area, and I always enjoyed seeing him. And he was a fascinating guy to talk to, and he probably has a very, very interesting bunch of stories to tell.
If I could snap my fingers and Plant City could have anything, it would be?
I would think, since I have a background in the entertainment business, that a sort of a small entertainment venue would be nice, whether it's like a band shell or maybe outdoors, to encourage the activity with the arts in the community.
Well, this has been great, Dave. We want people to be able to connect with you, and you want to give people how they can reach out to you. If it's
Letterfly.com, and I would especially enjoy sharing the essays that I place on my blog, which is called Letterfly Writes.
It was great talking to Dave, hearing his stories. I'm looking forward to the next one. Thanks for listening. If you enjoy the podcast, share it with friends. If you have feedback, let us know. We're on Facebook at Hello Plant City. Email us, helloplantcity@gmail.com. The music is by the talented local duo, The Birthday Saps. Big thanks to Blake Lowry for editing and technical assistance. Thanks for listening, and have a great week.